I was born in Canada, as were my parents. We all grew up in Western British Columbia. My father is a police officer for the RCMP, it's the Canadian Royal Mounted Police, and my mom is a nurse. So I studied American Sign Language interpretation at university. I wanted to become a sign language interpreter for the deaf. My university career was done in Winnipeg. I worked as an interpreter for a little while. And then before I moved to Turkey, I got my teaching certificate, and now I'm an English teacher. So I grew up in northern BC, a fairly small city, lots of outdoor activities and wilderness. Spent a lot of time kind of in nature and going camping and whatnot. I've been working ever since I was 16. I started just with small jobs in order to get through high school and then university. In university, I was working as a healthcare assistant, as well as working with autistic children. I also was working as a cashier to pay my way through university. Once I did my university education, I was working as an interpreter, a sign language interpreter for the deaf, as well as an intervener for the deaf-blind. Before I became a Muslim, I'm going to say I knew very little of Islam, if not anything. I mean, I remember the first Muslim that I can remember meeting was actually somebody I worked with when I was in high school, and I had no idea she was Muslim. I learned many years later, actually, after I had converted to Islam. I suppose my only exposure to Islam was anything I had seen on the media, particularly post 9/11, and any sort of whatever the media wanted me to hear, right? So that Muslims were responsible for terror attacks or these kinds of ideas. I think I had maybe a prejudgment about that women in Islam were oppressed. I remember specifically when I was looking into Islam, one of the questions I remember asking was, is it true that women can only sit in the back seat of cars, right? So I have no idea where that notion came to me, but I mean, somewhere that was a prejudgment that I had. So aside from kind of whatever I had ever seen in the media, I had no knowledge. I didn't even know that Muslims were the practitioners of Islam, right? So it was very basic. I had a conversation with a Muslim, and I remember being so shocked because the images that I had seen on the media were so different from this individual. And then later on we had a discussion as well about the fact that the prophets between Islam and Christianity were similar, which was news to me. And I remember thinking, wow, I should learn something about this religion. Like, what if I'm ever in an opportunity, or if I ever have to interpret at a mosque, or I should get some background knowledge. So I just decided to read into Islam to expand my knowledge in case I ever was going to interpret in that situation. And in the meantime, I was still having conversations with the individual that I had met about Islam. And so as I was reading and seeing that there were so many similarities between Christianity, which was the religion I was practicing before, and Islam, I just became more and more shocked at how many similar ideas there were. So from there, I continued to do some research. And the more research that I did, the more I understood that there was things about Islam that I really appreciated, and then there was things about Christianity that I started to question. And eventually, I was working at university at that time. I was working at a country club, and there was a Muslim family, a Syrian Muslim family at the time. They had just joined, and I understood they were Muslim, and I said, "Oh, I see that you're Muslim, and I'm learning about Islam a little bit. I'm reading about Islam," and the man, he was really keen to talk or to bring me books or help in any way that he could, and eventually they invited me to the mosque with them and to their home, and so I went because I was learning about Islam, and I was eager to go and see the community, and then when I went to the mosque, I ended up meeting some really wonderful women, young women that were my age, who I became quite close friends with. And slowly, without even my knowing it, the search that was just initially just to kind of become a better human being and to gain knowledge, I started to ask myself some serious questions about, like, is this something that I really believed? And what were the questions that I was struggling with within Christianity, and these are things that I needed to contemplate more. And I remember one evening, as a few months into reading about Islam, as things were starting to get more serious for me, and I was realizing that this was a religion that I really wanted to consider. I remember praying at night and just asking Allah, and I just saying, Allah, whoever you are, or God, whoever you are, if you're God of Christianity or if you're God of Islam, show that to me and kind of give me a sign, but make it clear to me, right, which is truth. And after I made that supplication and I prayed that prayer that night, it was, everything just became so much clearer. I really met amazing Muslim people in my life. The questions that I was struggling with, just about the faith or about modesty, like covering, or monotheism, or the history of the Quran, like all these kinds of things, God just kept putting people in my life to answer those questions. So I was really concerned about the fact that I was looking into Islam, but people didn't know that. I hadn't told my friends, I hadn't told my family. And what was that going to mean if I did accept Islam, and how would they receive me? And so I had made that prayer about, God, who are you? God of Christianity, God of Islam. And I made an appointment with the chaplain, the pastor of the Christian community on our university campus. And I had asked him, I sat down with him and I said, look, I'm at the point where I'm questioning my faith, and I have some questions, and if you can't give me an answer, I believe I'm going to become Muslim. And a lot of the questions particularly were with the Bible, actually, and how the Bible was selected, and how the books of the Bible were selected, and the canacity of the Bible, and why wasn't the original Bible in existence, and why was there such discrepancy between the different versions of the Bible, and whereas the Quran has been preserved for 1400 years, and that was something that was really significant for me, because God, even in Christianity, God says He will protect His word, and there was the Quran that was the message of God, that even if it was physically destroyed, it would be protected because so many people have memorized it, and the original is still in existence. And then here was the Bible that there was no original, and within the versions there were so many, interpretations, and so I sat down with this pastor and I asked these questions, and he couldn't give me any answer, and he said, in the end you just have to believe, and that's what faith is, and you just have to believe, and that was a struggle for me. That didn't feel right, because I felt surely religion and belief, it's more than just like a hunch, or it's more than a feeling, or it's more than an idea. Like I wanted something that felt more concrete. And the same weekend at my university, there was a conference that had been put on by the local Muslim Student Association, and they brought in a speaker from England. And I just remember walking in that weekend, and all of the youth were there, all of these students, and everybody wanted to meet him. He was quite popular at the time. And everybody wanted to talk to him and spend time with him. And I walked up to him, and he just sat and answered all of my questions. And I just remember thinking, wow, I went to this pastor and I had these questions, and he couldn't give me his answers. He couldn't be clear to me. And then this man who everybody wants to speak with, he dedicated hours, literally hours of his time to just sit there and to answer my questions. And the other really unique part of it, because I asked him the same questions I asked the pastor, I asked him questions about the Bible. And this brother from England, he gave me the history not from the Muslim perspective. He was a comparative religious scholar, and he gave me the perspective from the Christian church, from the Christian history books. And he said, look, this is the history. If you want to go read about it, you can just go to like a Christian textbook that you would find at a Christian university. And I so appreciated that perspective, because I didn't want his bias. I wanted truth. I wanted something concrete, which is what I had gone to the pastor for. And And in that moment, I felt like so much relief that I was like, there it is, there's the facts. But at the same time, I questioned, why had I never learned this when I went to church or Sunday school? Because I was very active in the Christian church growing up. And anyway, so at the end of the evening, he asked me, he said, do you believe in Allah? And I said, yeah, like I've always believed in God, that's no problem. The concept of God has never been an issue. And then he said, do you believe that the Prophet Muhammad is his, like, the final prophet and messenger? And I said, yeah, I think that makes sense. And then, so he said to me, he said, like, go wash, take your ablutions and come back and let's like give your shahada, your testimony of faith. And I was just like, whoa, no, this is not happening right now. I can't do this right now. Because again, I was at that point where like I knew it was truth, but I was so scared to take the step. And it was funny because I had prayed and I had asked God, I was like, who are you? And show me truth. And there it was. But in that moment, it was just like, I needed to take the step, like God did his part. It was time for me to do mine. But again, I knew what that meant for me. I knew that meant the following day I would put on hijab, or which not everybody does, but for me it was a really important step. I knew like if I was going to make this decision, I was going to live as a Muslim. And that was going to mean no more drinking alcohol and, no partying, no pork, no, like putting a hijab on. And so I told him, no, like I'm not going to become Muslim tonight. And we continued the discussion. And at the end of it, I said, look, this conference is 2 days long. If at the end of the weekend I feel like I do today, like I will become Muslim, I'll make that decision, which is what I did. So that was a Friday night. And then on the Sunday, May 14th, I gave my testimony of faith in front of everybody at this conference and became Muslim. It was extremely scary because Islam was not well received in the media at the time. And I knew that if I told them, I was probably going to lose them. And those two friends that I sat with that night, they were incredibly supportive, and they're still two of my best friends today. There's lots of other people that didn't support me. And eventually, after I became Muslim, I took some time and I sent out an email to everybody. A lot of my older friends and high school friends, they were in a different city. I went to university in a different city. So I told people over email, and I told my family a week or so after I had become Muslim. And they were living in a different city. And of course it was difficult because they didn't know what to expect. It was really scary for them, right? They didn't know what I was going to look like or what did that mean, and they didn't see the process. They hadn't seen me looking into things. They didn't know the Muslim community. Again, their experience of Islam was what they had seen in the media. My dad was a police officer. It was really difficult for them. It was really hard. My mom was very fearful that there's this movie, Not Without My Daughter. She was really fearful I was going to fall into, like I was going to be kidnapped, or that if I got married, that my children were going to be taken away from me. I would never leave the house. Like all of these bizarre Hollywood kind of perceptions of Islam that are put on them. That was their experience, right? And so they really struggled. My dad was for different reasons, my mom for different reasons. Eventually over time, they've certainly come around and we're still very close, but there were some major struggles early on. I definitely lost some friends. Some of my friends decided to put distance. For myself, because my lifestyle was different now in terms of just my leisure activities and things I did, places I went, some of that distance I put. Eventually what I learned is that the people that were most important to me and the truest of friends, it didn't matter. They were going to be there no matter what, which has been my experience. My truest friends are still my friends today. And then the other people that were really negative and had kind of those really aggressive, kind of abrasive responses, they aren't people that I need in my life right now anyway. Those aren't, if you're not going to love me as I am no matter what, then you don't need to be a part of my life. People I didn't know, but in the community that I lived in at the time, I remember feeling like everybody was looking at me. Like I remember feeling, oh, you know, people were staring, but that was probably just my own insecurity at the time. Although I certainly did experience some discrimination within the community. But overall, my experience has been quite positive. Certainly the Muslim community opened their arms to me and were incredibly supportive, and I felt so much love and such a sense of community and respect there, which was extremely helpful early on. Having that community connection, I think, was major. It was very key in terms of my feeling so strong and willing to continue when things were difficult. But otherwise, yeah, it's been okay. Yeah, I mean, I think I was so ignorant towards Islam before I became Muslim. As I said, I really didn't know. I really didn't know anything, and I think afterwards, it wasn't that my mind necessarily changed. I think I was so much more educated, and I had such a, such a positive experience, and I think seeing the diversity in the community as well was really significant. I think there's always this idea that Muslims are just Arabs, which is absolutely not the case. It was such a welcomed opportunity to be a part of such a diverse community, people from all over the world, people with such diverse backgrounds. So that was pretty significant. Opposed from that, I don't think I had a lot of other predisposed ideas or notions about it. Yeah. I mean, I think the most significant things for me when I became Muslim, or just what I love the most about Islam right now is, as I mentioned, I just think it's it balances the faith and the spiritual and the intellectual. It's a perfect balance. There's proof in it, and the fact that the Quran has been preserved, and you know that really what we're asked for and asked of to do, it just makes such perfect sense to me. I think that it's timeless. I think that the examples that we find in the Quran and from the Prophet Muhammad, like I think, peace be upon him, I think they're examples for everybody in all situations. And I think that is what makes it like a religion for all and inclusive of everybody. I also love the idea of community that's within Islam. There's 5 pillars within Islam, and each of the pillars, you know, the statement of faith, we say that publicly around community. We pray as a community facing the same direction at the same time, often in congregation with one another. We all fast the same month of Ramadan. Again, it's a community action. We give charity as zakat. We have to do that to support our community, to take care of the people in need. And then if we go to Hajj, again, this is Muslims all going to the same place, doing the same pilgrimage together. Community is such an integral part of this religion. And we're all on the same playing field. That's enormous to me in terms of there's no racism, there's no tribalism, there's no sense of somebody being better because of money or education or status. We're all the same, and I think that when that's understood, and it's just something so beautiful, and it really just shows how this is a religion for everybody, and how we need to connect with one another, and we need to serve one another and worship with one another, which I think is really what we need to do as humanity, for the sake of the preservation of the earth and preservation of mankind, and just be good and take care of one another. And I think that Islam really encompasses that. And that's like the beauty and the truth of Islam that I wish I wish I was on the media more. I wish that was the message that was being shared all the time instead of the negativity. I think the biggest struggle that Muslims are facing and that Islam is facing right now clearly is that so much of what is being shown about Islam, it's not our narrative. I think that the world is really quick to talk about Islam, and often it's not the Muslims that are being interviewed or that are speaking up. And I think that we as a Muslim community, we need to be more active. But I also think that the media has a responsibility to talk to Muslims as well, and to tell the good stories, and to go into the communities and see the work that's going on. I also think that because there's so much negativity when it comes to Islam, and we live in such a global environment these days, I think it poses a new struggle, particularly for Muslims in general, but particularly our youth, in terms of internalized Islamophobia and Muslim identity. How can I be Muslim as well as, live a life in today's society? What does that look like? How can I still have pride in my religion and still practice my religion without being or having fear of judgment, or assuming that people will think a certain thing of me, or will oppress me or close doors towards me or have judgments upon me? I think that's a struggle right now for our community. I think we really need to work hard to find our voices and to go back and to look at the struggles from the people of our past. As I said, the Quran is timeless, and I think that there's true knowledge and wisdom to be taken from those stories and to apply to today's society. And if we can do that, and we can find our voices, and if we can just and not hide from who we are. It's okay that we're Muslim, right? So just tell our own stories. I think that will. I think that's really important for our community right now. I mean, I've been Muslim in the West, and I've been Muslim here in Turkey. There's definitely different experiences and different struggles. I mean, certainly within Canada. Canada's a pretty welcoming country. It's pretty diverse. We lived in Toronto. It's an extremely diverse city. The mosques are very, very active. There's a lot of learning to be had, lots of conferences. The mosques are the center of the community. People are going there for activities and sports and community engagement. And because it's necessary to keep your Muslim identity, the mosque is the hub of the Muslim identity, they're really precious things, and it feels very much alive. And you really understand your community and how important that is. When we came here, because everybody's grown up Muslim, and Muslim is part of the culture, or Islam is part of the culture, Islam is experienced and it's lived, but in a very different way. And I know for myself, and also with my children, I feel like I have to work really hard to make sure that there's a consciousness about Islam here, and that we don't take it for granted. There isn't the activity in the mosques like there is in Canada. In order for myself, particularly because I speak English predominantly, to seek knowledge and to be in community with others, that's a bigger challenge. Women here, they don't have as much of a presence in the mosques, or just even children. I'm struggling to have my children really excited about it. So it takes, I feel like it takes more of an effort to raise them in a way where they're conscious of the choices that we make, conscious of the way that we live, knowing why we do it. I would say that those are the major differences. There's positive and negatives of both. The fact that we're here, that was a choice. We wanted to raise our children in a Muslim country, and we value that very much. That being said, I really do hope that one day my children will experience an excitement and a love for the mosque that they did when we were in Canada. I think the best way to tell others about Islam is to make sure you know the religion yourself. I mean, I think that we are responsible as Muslims to educate ourselves and to practice and adhere to the commandments of the Quran and of Allah. And I think that if we do that, that's the best example. I think, we know the Prophet Muhammad was the best example for mankind. And the way that we know he won the hearts of the people is because he was trusted, he was kind, he was generous, he was forgiving, he was merciful. And at the same time, he adhered to his values. He didn't change them for others. He was always on the middle ground, whatever was easy for the people. And I think that if we understand our religion and if we practice it unapologetically in terms of, again, this is my faith and I'm going to adhere to it, at the same time, I can still be a part of your community and I can still love you and I can still welcome you and we can support one another, and we can have respectful dialogue. And I think that as long as we do that and we follow his example, I think that's going to be the best example for others as well, because it's undeniable. They'll see the truth, they'll see the beauty, because that's what true Islam is. It's this sense of community and respect and kindness and charity, and welcoming dialogue and bettering ourselves. And I think that that's what we need to really focus on.